We did have lots of conversation in the subcommittee meetings and hearings about the Bible initiative. Did that get consideration, and how did it not end up in the final budget?
It did not get any consideration in the subcommittee.
An Oklahoma lawmaker says the Senate Education Subcommittee did not consider the State Department of Education's $3 million request for Bibles.
This means it's not part of their recommended budget for fiscal year 2026. Fox 25's David Chazanoff spoke with a lawmaker on the committee. David, what went into this decision?
Attaboy, Senator Mary Bourne here at the Capitol tells me they consider that this is already problematic for Oklahoma students.
There's not enough money to set aside for the $3 million if it's going to end up in a big lawsuit or perpetuate a lawsuit.
State Senator Mary Bourne says the OSDE has gotten into legal trouble before for their Bible initiative. She adds that it doesn't help the state agency's case that they've already spent $25,000 on Bibles.
We just kind of thought enough money has been wrapped up in a lawsuit, and we're going to have to wait for the courts to rule on whether or not that was a legal use of state dollars.
The lawmaker says that's why Senate Education Subcommittee members decided to prioritize other things in their proposed fiscal year 2026 budget instead, like teaching kids math and making sure maternity pay is covered.
With those things, it really used up all the money that we had. We just didn't have extra money for more funds to be litigated.
The Bible initiative being left out of their budget recommendation was only a 16-second conversation during today's Senate Appropriations meeting. Oklahoma Senate Minority Leader Julia Kurt brought it up.
I was surprised. The response was very quick. The chairman, he just said, no, we didn't consider it, which is interesting because it was certainly something the public was worried about. And I think we need to give them information because they're wondering if our public funds are being used to buy Bibles for schools and what that separation is. We don't know.
Grace Kim with the OSDE tells Fox 25, while the subcommittee chose not to fund key initiatives like Bibles in classrooms, they won't let this decision get in the way of doing what's best for students. She adds that the OSDE will explore every option to make their priorities a reality. And Senator Bourne tells me she believes the House committee will do the same thing and not consider the Bible initiative for their budget. Reporting live at the state capitol, David Chazanoff, Fox 25 News.
OSDE announced they're distributing Bibles to every AP U.S. government classroom across the state. According to the department, the initiative began today and aims to equip educators with additional historical context for teaching the foundations of American governance. State Superintendent Ryan Walters said in a statement, students need to understand the foundation of American history, including the Bible, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence. A bill to allow Oklahoma State Board of Education members to place things on the monthly agenda advanced out of committee today. This comes a few weeks after Governor Stitt replaced 3 members on the board.
Fox 25's Capitol reporter Paige Taylor has more from the state capitol.
An amendment to House Bill 1491 would allow 2 members of the board to request in writing what topic they would like to see placed on the agenda. Last month, Governor Stitt named 3 new board members to serve on the Oklahoma State Board of Education. Stitt said it is clear that Oklahoma's education infrastructure has fallen prey to what he calls needless political drama. The new members participated in their first board meeting last week and pushed back on some of the items on the agenda, especially when State Superintendent Ryan Walters brought up immigration. On Wednesday, an amendment to a bill was announced to make changes to board members' ability to get something on the agenda. House Bill 1491 would allow a member of the board to request an item to be placed on the agenda if requested in writing by at least 2 board members.
There's no mechanism for the state school board members to request that they discuss an agenda item or to put an agenda item on the agenda. And so, yes, the way I understand it, it goes back possibly all the way back to Superintendent Garrett when I first started teaching.
House Speaker Kyle Hilbert filed the amendment with the support of Pro Tem Paxton and Governor Stitt.
For me, the way I look at this is if we're going to have a board overseeing how taxpayer dollars are being spent and the education of our kids, then the board members should be able to have some say in the agenda items. And so it's really simple legislation in that sense.
The bill passed unanimously out of the House Education Oversight Committee. It now heads to the House floor. Reporting at the state capitol, Paige Taylor, Fox 25 News.
And following the advancement of that House Bill 1491, we asked the governor for his take on the bill.
you know, you don't really have a board if you can't put an agenda item on there, right? I mean, you ought to be able to put things on the board agenda to vote on. Obviously, the board has the right to vote those up or down, but if 9 people want something and one person is keeping that from even being talked about, I think that's a problem. That's not really a board. So we applaud that. We think that's very, very normal to be able to put things onto an agenda, to have good governance. And so, you know, we'll see if that thing gets to my desk. But overall, we think that's a good thing.
Attorney General Gentner Drummond also weighing in on the State Board of Education situation tonight, saying Governor Stitt promoted and supported Superintendent Ryan Walters every step of the way. But now his handpicked superintendent refuses to do his bidding, and the governor wants to change the law to give his appointees full control of the agenda. Drummond says he's applauding the legislature for cleaning up the mess that Governor Stitt and Superintendent Walters have made of our public education system.
There's a push at the Capitol to remove chronic absenteeism from state school report cards. State Representative Ronnie Johns says it's not been a good measure for accountability of schools. Instead, his legislation would create a new instructional time measure and give schools additional points on their report card if they go beyond the required 166 days per year up to 180 days. The State Board of Education will be required to make the substitution in the state's plan and submit the proposed amendment to the U.S. Department of Education no later than August 1st. If it receives the necessary approval, the changes would begin this fall. The bill unanimously passed the House Education Oversight Committee and can now be considered by the full House.
Superintendent Ryan Walters submitting a second formal request from AG Drummond. He's asking for a clear legal opinion about the impacts of one of President Trump's executive orders that could involve Oklahoma schools. In a statement, Walters says Attorney General Drummond has a constitutional responsibility to provide legal clarity on federal actions impacting Oklahoma. He also states Drummond's continued inaction directly obstructs President Trump's executive order. He says rather than delaying, he should be working to implement the policy that Oklahomans overwhelmingly support.
The state superintendent is calling an assignment given to a student in Waurika psychology class completely unacceptable. The form reportedly included questions of a sexual nature. The district says the form taken from a state-approved psychology curriculum, however, admits the content of the form was inappropriate for students and should have never been dispersed. It says it's been removed from the class and all parents with students in the class were notified on Monday. And that was your Big Story Breakdown. You can learn more about the crisis in the classroom and the education-based legislation making its way through the Capitol on OKCFox.com.
Plus, you can check out our previous Big Story Breakdowns on our YouTube channel. Just scan the QR code or search OKC Fox.